Hey folks, welcome to this week's edition of Wild Kentuckiana Live. I'm your host, Tom Chamberlain. With me tonight, I have a good friend of mine, Mike Hagan. Mike, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me, Tom.
It's been a while trying to get you to come on. You've been pretty busy. You always got a million things going on. You got a new baby, so it keeps you pretty occupied most of the time.
Yes, sir.
Now, the reason I brought you in this week is everybody knows you're a big turkey hunter. And Youth Weekend being this weekend, I took some kids out, had no luck this weekend, but a lot of people had that problem. I think the cold snap we had, the 50-mile-an-hour winds yesterday,
the straight line winds were
really forced them to probably get in a holler somewhere and not roost where they typically would roost, is my opinion. What do you think?
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, these birds, usually this time of year, are very consistent. The gobblers know where their hens are.
Right.
As long as they're not bothered, they roost in the same place night after night after night. But you throw 40, 60-mile-an-hour winds in the game, and they're obviously going to have to change that pattern.
Yeah, and you know, I talked to a lot of people this weekend. They've been seeing the same thing. Pretty active on the roost. As soon as they hit the ground, nothing.
Done.
Locked up.
Right.
And I see them in pretty good sized flocks right now. They haven't really broke off anywhere yet.
Right.
And hopefully that all happens by the time our season opens in 2 weeks.
Sure.
Now you took a young man out, his first turkey hunt. How'd it go?
I did. I took a young man out, Trenton Shepard from Taylorsville, Kentucky. Trenton's avid hunter. He's 14 years old. That was actually his first turkey hunt. I called him tonight to let him know that I was going to be on the show, and he's out in the field again trying to.
Okay, good deal.
Trying to get his second bird.
Right.
So Trenton took a great bird for his first hunt. Had one spur 1.1 inch, the other spur 1.25 inch, 11-inch beard.
That's a wonderful bird for a kid's first bird.
Great bird.
And I'm sure you've hooked him on that now, because from now on, all he'll want to do is turkey hunt.
Oh, for sure. He loves looking for Indian artifacts, and I took his first deer with a bow this year.
Nice.
Also, and does a lot of waterfowl hunting with his grandfather. So
sounds like Grandpa's getting him out there and getting him right. You know,
definitely hooked.
What most kids, I think, enjoy really turkey hunting versus deer hunting is it's more vocal, more interactive. And, you know, if they're not coming to you, you can always go to them.
Right.
Whereas deer, we know it's not usually the case, especially for young kids. You don't try to do a spot and stalk one with a young kid. But turkey, you can do that. You know, so I think that's why kids probably enjoy turkey hunting more, because they get to hear more, get to see more, get to move around a little more. And famous thing I always say, if a turkey could smell, you'd never kill them. I mean, because they're pretty smart animals.
Yes, they are. Well, I don't know if I call them smart. They're just they're not curious. They're not. You know, not like a deer. A deer will spot you in a tree, and they'll sit there and bob its head up and down and look at you for a few minutes. Turkey sees that movement, and they're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just...
their vision is just amazing.
It is. I watched a turkey down in Ballard County years ago, standing out in the middle of a cut cornfield with his head cocked sideways like that. And I asked the gentleman that owned the property, I said, what in the world is that turkey doing? What's the matter with his neck? He said, there's a hawk up there somewhere. And I was young. I was probably 14, 15 years old at the time. And I stood there for 30 minutes looking up in the sky. Finally, I saw a little, looked like a piece of pepper circling around in the sky. That's what that hen turkey was looking at. Yeah,
they're pretty on their game when it comes to sight. They know what creatures are out there trying to pick them off.
Which is everything.
Right, absolutely. You know, and that's why it's so important to do predator control in the off season, because you know we all know that they love to get those turkey eggs.
Right.
So I know you do some predator hunting. You do a little bit of everything. You do some bow fishing, some deer hunting. You're on the pro staff for Cabelas and a couple other places, Easton?
Well, Easton Archery is actually a rep firm called OutTech.
Okay.
They represent a lot of different companies, Avian X and Ameristep and Hoyt Bows and numerous different companies. But I've been with them for about 3 years now.
Now, what's your responsibilities with them?
I do seminars, also in conjunction with the pro staff at Cabelas when they have special events, things like that. I'll do seminars or clinics, just go to the store and talk to customers. Like they just had the Spring Turkey Classic.
Right.
I was there for a couple days just talking to customers, answering questions, and showing them some of the different products that are out there available today.
And that's good that Cabelas, has that option, because there's a lot of people out there that go in there and they see all these really cool merchandise, all these really cool calls. There's a call for everything. They don't really know how to use them. So guys like you are there in store to help them along with the process of what they need to purchase and how they need to use it. So it's really good that you all get the opportunity to do that for these people, because there's a lot of new hunters out there. Without new hunters, our our passion's going to go away at some
That's
point
right.
if we don't keep it going.
That's right.
So,
And as far as the products goes, there's a lot of great products out there.
There is.
On Trenton's particular hunt yesterday, we never picked up a call. We didn't have to. We were right place, right time. Decoys did their job. The bird actually came in and whooped up on her Jake decoy pretty good at about 17 yards. And
that's,
like I said,
that's
with,
one of the best
proper
decoys.
scouting,
Absolutely.
we didn't need to use any calling. We just had to sit there and be patient and wait for nature to take its course.
Yeah, and those decoys you're using are really, really strong decoys. And it's the only,
They
only decoys that Lights Out uses. By far proven to me to be the best. And there's a lot of them on the market. And there's a lot of good ones on the market. Don't get me wrong. You know, Primals makes a good one. There's a bunch of good ones out there. But my thing is, if you're going to use it, use the best. And I feel like it's probably the best on the market.
I agree. They are a little bit pricey, but you
They
do
are.
get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
They're very, very realistic paint schemes. The shapes of the body, though they don't look like a football with a head stuck on the top of it, they're very, very realistic and detailed. They come with a great carrying bag. They come with a great stake.
Absolutely. They don't break. That's the thing.
Yesterday evening, I had a few guys tell me they were spinning around like a helicopter in the field with that wind, but they do have lifelike motion with a little bit of a subtle wind. But the decoys look great, and again, the paint holds on to them. They
What do you
last for
think about
years
their
and
strutters?
years. I really like it. It's actually a Jake. It's supposed to be a Jake strutter.
Right.
It's a little small.
That's why I like it.
But
because your satellite birds are not intimidated by it.
Right.
Some of these other decoys, you see these strutters, and it's a 50-pound turkey sitting out there, you know? Even if you get a good 2 or 3 year old bird, they're not going to come to it.
Yeah, I know they do that. A lot of the companies make those large decoys for visibility. But you and I both know they're seeing that fan.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of old time hunters that's all they do. They take their own turkey fan, put a stick on it, and stick it out there in the grass.
Right.
And for some birds that works, but I know that 4.5, 5.5 year old bird that's maybe been shot at before, or maybe had his behind kicked once in a couple times out in the field. That's where those quality decoys do come into play.
They do. And I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break here just a second, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what we need to do as hunters to prepare for the upcoming season we have in 2 weeks. So folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Wild Kentuckiana Live. Hey folks, welcome back to Wild Kentuckiana Live. I'm your host, Tom Chamberlain. And I want to thank one of our great sponsors, Knob Creek Gun Range. Without them, we couldn't be able to have this show here. So make sure you go out and support Kenny Sumners and the gang out there. If you need anything to do with any turkey hunting, guns, ammo, they have the machine gun shoot, which is an amazing ordeal they do out there. They also have a wonderful range of sighting any rifle, shotgun, whatever you need, muzzle loader. They have it all. Go see them. They'll take care of you. Tell them Wild Kentuckiana Live sent you. So Mike, as we was talking before we went to the break, we were talking about the youth hunt. So hopefully there's a lot of kids that were successful because nothing better than me seeing a kid take a turkey.
Absolutely.
Just gets them hooked up. But now it's the big boys' time. Now it's time for the adults to start playing. Now we have 2 weeks. I'm hoping the weather can get a little more consistent for us. I still think it's a little bit early. And I really feel like Fish and Wildlife would do us a lot of favors if they move youth up one weekend to put it right before ours, but I don't know. It just seems like this time of year, the weather's so inconsistent, you don't know what the birds are going to do.
There's pros and cons to both. I mean, the youth season is designed for the kids to be successful.
Right.
The birds are very responsive to calls. There's a lot of toms out there that haven't located hens yet.
Right.
That tom that Trenton killed yesterday, he was by himself. I mean, that was a 3.5, maybe 4.5 year old turkey that came to that field by himself.
Right.
The season is designed for the youth to have success. One bad thing about the youth season, usually we don't have very much foliage.
Right.
You can see a lot of foliage around the interstates, but back in the woods, it's almost non-existent right now. I think it's going to really blow up in the next, we had a frost last night. I think the foliage probably will really blow up between now and the regular season. Well, I always like having some green in the woods.
Me too.
For the season, I like to run and gun, so it's nice to have that extra cover.
Now, for folks out there that have never turkey hunted or they are very limited in their turkey experience, what do you suggest for new people getting into this as far as a big mistake I see a lot of people do is call too much? I mean, sometimes you'll run a bird the opposite direction for calling too much.
Right.
You know, sometimes less is more.
Sure, sure.
And for a new person that's out there that hasn't had any experience or going to try it in 2 weeks, what do you suggest to them?
Right. Well, as far as the calling goes, you're absolutely right. Everybody loves to hear the birds gobble. You call, the bird gobbles. You call again, the bird gobbles at you again. Sure, sure. We love to hear that sound. There's nothing better. But just because he gobbles at you doesn't mean he's going to come to you.
Right.
Keep that bird's curiosity up. One of the things my uncle taught me when I first started turkey hunting, we went out turkey hunting together out in the woods, and he was just scratching in the leaves with his fingers.
Yeah.
Just very, very soft, very subtle. Can't mess it up.
Right.
Other than maybe getting busted flicking your fingers.
Right.
You can't do it too much, can't do it too little. Just a great sound for keep that gobbler's curiosity level up. Get him to come in and take a look. There's a lot of great calls out there that are easy to learn how to use. Box calls are very effective. A lot of new turkey hunters go to the store, they grab that box call, and it sounds horrible.
Right.
From 12 inches away, it does sound horrible.
Right.
But you take that call and you walk 100 yards away from it, it has a completely different sound.
Absolutely.
The way that sound resonates through the field or through the woods is completely different than what you're hearing at that short distance.
Right.
But
pot calls, a lot of people like slate calls.
Right.
Mouth calls, that's a technique that you have to learn. It's not
Sure.
something you can just put in your mouth and call right away. That takes practice, and usually it drives me nuts when people are practicing because all they do is hammer on that mouth call, and I'm like, just shut up.
Yep,
Enough's
exactly.
enough.
Yep, purr and cluck.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do.
And there's a lot of great companies here locally in Kentucky that make wonderful calls.
Sure.
So if you're thinking about trying turkey hunting, look up a local company here. We got Ridge Rock and Turkey Calls out of Taylorsville. Stan and Brad are great people over there. They'll take care of you. They really do a good job with their calls. But there's a lot of local places out there that have them. And if you can't find somebody locally, then go to your Cabelas.
Sure.
And pick one up. I mean, even you can prime ulcers at every Walmart. So if you're in that situation, you can run by Walmart and get one. Now, what's your theory or what's your thinking when it comes to when they're on the roost? Are you doing any purring? Are you getting them to shock gobble for you? Are you using an owl locator?
Bit. I mean, there's almost not a place in Kentucky that you're not going to have a crow or an owl or a goose or a wood duck or something that's going to make that turkey shock gobble. It's my personal opinion. I don't like to let that bird know I'm there until I feel like it's about time for him to fly down.
Right.
I hear a lot of guys doing tree yelps or they're scratching a wing on the tree, stuff like that. And it's dark.
Yeah.
And that bird's sitting up there, walking up and down on that branch, wondering what's going on. I do it a little bit differently. I like to try to slip in, get as close as I possibly can. And then when I feel like he's about ready to pitch down, say, hey, I'm right here.
Right.
Turn around, pitch down my way.
Right.
I mean, everybody obviously has different opinions, likes to do things different ways.
Sure.
But
it can all be effective. Sure. For the new people out there, if they've never turkey hunted, they're not going to automatically just walk to the woods and there's going to be a turkey there. It's great to get out in the morning to see if you can see them flying down. Locator calls are great for this time of year, so you can kind of locate where you need to go at. If you're not an experienced turkey hunter, I would suggest using a blind.
Sure.
It keeps some of the movement down. You hide a little bit of the movement. What's your go-to if you're taking somebody new out and you're trying to teach them, not how you do it, but teach them from very scratch to locate?
Right. To locate birds, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can sneak out before a thunderstorm.
Right. Absolutely.
If a bird will gobble one thing, it's thunder cracking. But
or my car door slamming.
Yep, car door, rattle car keys. I think the first turkey I ever heard gobble was somebody rattling their car keys. But turkeys will shock gobble at just about anything this time of year. Owl call is probably one of the easiest to learn. I don't prefer to use an owl call up in the day. Most owls that I hear are early in the morning or late in the evening if you're trying to roost a bird. Crow call is very, very easy to use.
And we got crows all over the state,
exactly,
so it'll work anywhere.
Exactly. And a lot of times, too, you can do a crow fight yourself, and then you'll get the crows in the area fired up. You might not have a bird that's within range of your crow call that's going to answer you, but you might get some crows fired off in the distance that might get a bird to fire
absolutely.
off.
And there's a lot of different techniques you can use for that. And, hopefully the people that are out there that are just learning how to turkey hunt will have a successful year. They'll be hooked like we are because we're definitely hooked. There's points throughout the year of turkey and deer season that our families are neglected because we're, we're gone so much. So luckily we have an understanding family, so that helps out. we're going to take a break here in a few minutes here, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about if you can't get them, if they don't fly off the roost in front of you, what do you do?
Sure.
'Cause a lot of people don't know really what to do. If they don't come down in front of you, what do you do next?
Sure.
So, folks, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll discuss more with Mike Hagan. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to Wild Kentuckiana Live. I'm your host, Tom Chamberlain. With me, I have Mike Hagan talking about a little turkey hunting because 2 weeks we're in the game. Now, for the people that have been roosting them and they know where they're coming down at, you get your decoys out. And I tell you what, it's another trick too, is sneaking out, putting those decoys out without getting busted.
Absolutely.
I've been busted.
Absolutely.
And I've had them pitch down in the woods because they seen me.
Sure.
And go the opposite direction. I don't care what you call or what you do, they're not coming back.
Sure.
They seen you put the decoys out. You're done. So if you are successful to get your decoys out, get back to your blind or get back to your wood line, and they don't pitch down to that field, and which just happens.
Sure.
It goes the other way, and then you're at a situation. If you can't get them to come back, do you go get them? I go get them because I'm not going to let them get away from me. But what do you think is the best tactic for a newer hunter to do that on? Because you got to be pretty sneaky. You got to be ninja-like because they'll see you if you're not.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of a loaded question, depending on what part of the season it is.
Mm-hmm.
Opening weekend, I'm going to tell you to stay put.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be a lot of foliage in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to slip around like you're going to be able to do the second or third weekend
Right.
of the season. Like I said, opening weekend, I probably suggest to stay put.
Okay.
Keep listening for those gobblers
Mm-hmm.
to figure out which direction they're going. Then you can later in the day, you figure out that they did go into the woods or they went down the ridge or went to the top or whatever. You can go out later that afternoon, head the direction that those birds went and see why they went there.
That's
Is
right.
there a strut zone? Is there a food plot?
Right.
Or is that the direction his hens were roosted?
Right.
You can basically stay put and scout for your next opportunity from the blind. Now later in the season,
Mm-hmm.
when there's more foliage and those birds are gobbling, by all means, like I said, I'm like you. I'm going after them.
Going after
I'm going
them.
to try to get out in front of those birds, get in between them and their hens.
I like to go a big circle around.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, big circle.
Yeah.
Get in front of them. I know which way they're heading to me.
You got to get out in front of
Yeah.
them. It's all. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It's very, very difficult to call a turkey back.
Right.
To make him come backwards.
Right.
He's already been there. Mm-hmm. He knows what's up. He's heading the
He
other
knows
direction.
there's no hens there.
Sure.
There's hens up there. He's not turning around for you.
That's right.
And you make and I've gone them a big circle, try to get in front of them. Next thing I know, they went this way. So now you're making another big circle, try to get in front of them
Right.
again. And it's a game. It's a cat and mouse game.
It is.
The whole day.
It's chess game. That's why it's one of the reasons it's so much fun.
It is because you can get up and move and do that, whereas deer you don't typically do that. Now we all know as the season gets later and later, it gets harder and harder and harder.
It does.
They start henning up. They're not really receptive to any calls. They don't do a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
What's your suggestion when they've actually started henning up?
I really like midday,
Okay.
as long as the weather cooperates and it's not 90 degrees. I really, really like to hunt in the middle part of the day.
Hens have gone to the nest.
That's right. He's going to breed those hens. He's going to eventually separate them from them at some point.
Right.
There's a lot of different tactics you can use during that time of the season. You can scout looking for dust bowls.
Yep.
Turkeys in the heat of the day, they like shade.
Mm-hmm.
They like getting in there and dusting and getting the bugs off of them. That's a great place. That's a place that Big Tom's going to frequent looking
Right.
for hens. Nesting areas is another good tactic. Being familiar with where your nesting spots are.
Right.
A lot of times you can't figure that out till the end of the season.
That's right.
The hens are sitting on the nest, but
Right.
you can for sure remember it for the next, for the
Yeah,
next
and they
year.
typically like the nest pretty close to the previous years.
Uh-huh.
And I bust them off the nest, not meaning to, walking
Right,
by them,
right.
boy, they're stealth, they're
Right.
gone. And right then when she's up against that tree, she's got a nest over there.
Sure,
And I
sure.
just keep on going, hopefully coyotes or coons or nobody else gets to them.
Right.
But it does get harder as the year
Mm-hmm.
as the season goes on, and it makes it more difficult, makes it more of a chess match at that point.
Right.
So we got a couple pictures we want to show. It's one picture we got give us a little background on what this is with your daughter. Like I said, you've got it. Well, that's your buck picture. Tell us about your buck picture there.
That is not my daughter.
Now, what about this one right here? This was a dandy of a deer. Was this last year's?
Yes, this was my 2015-16 season Kentucky deer. That was actually taken in Oldham County, Kentucky. That was a kind of an odd situation. I had a lot of good and bad luck this year. I actually had one picture of that deer in September in the middle of the night.
Right.
And I used the cellular camera phones, trail cameras, to text me a picture. It was actually a Friday afternoon. I got a picture of that deer at about 9 o'clock in the morning. And this particular area where the camera was located is about a 4-acre thicket surrounded by cut fields.
Okay.
And knowing that that deer was in there during daylight hours, I knew he had to be close.
Right.
On that particular day, it was muzzleloader season. The wind was blowing a lot like it was for our youth turkey hunters yesterday evening. It was really, really strong winds. So I took the opportunity to slip into that spot, use the wind in my favor, climb the tree. I was actually concerned I might bump the deer out of his bed climbing in the tree, but I got in was fortunate enough to get in the tree clean. And 2 does walked through this little patch of grass after the wind had started to lay down a little bit.
Sure.
And up he stood. He was bedded
How old
down
do you
about
think he was?
75 yards away from me. I think that deer was 4.5.
Okay.
I'm not real sure. This is the last year I was able to hunt that property.
Okay. Well, you took a dandy off before you had to get off. That's a very mature, nice deer there, and you know, I sometimes see your Facebook rants about scoring because you tend to rant sometimes on Facebook.
I do.
I enjoy the fire out of it.
Sure.
I love it. So that deer's probably 280 inches. Is that about right?
That's right. That's right. I hope you wrap the tape, wrap the measuring tape around his antlers all the way. Yeah, that's probably what he was.
I've seen more 170-inch deer killed last year on Facebook.
That's right.
Than I've ever seen in my life.
That's right. Well, and a lot of the shows are guilty of it as well.
Yeah.
They say, "Oh, this is a beautiful 150," and
it's fully extended, and they're leaning back, and they're stretching.
There's a Facebook video on there, the guys that are making fun of the stereotypes.
It's pretty funny.
Guy standing 75 yards behind the deer with his hand right underneath the antler.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny.
So what about this turkey? If we can get this turkey picture up real quick before we go to break. Here it is. There's your youngin'. That is a cute picture. She's way better looking than you are.
That's right. She takes after her mother.
Right. So what about this bird here? Was this last year's bird?
That was actually in southern Indiana last year.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to take both my Kentucky birds in Hagan County. My Indiana season was cut short. My younger sister and her now husband got married during turkey season. Thanks a lot, guys.
Right.
But I snuck out the morning of their rehearsal dinner. Went over to a place in southern Indiana that I have and was fortunate enough to take that bird and had to get my little daughter in.
Absolutely, it won't be long and she'll be out in the woods with you. That's what it's all about, getting the kids out there, and I'm sure your beautiful wife will have no problem. She'll be able to handle you taking the baby girl out there.
A few
more years. Folks, when we get back, we're going to have a new guest come on and we're going to talk about tree stand safety, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey folks, welcome back to Wild Kentuckiana Live. I'm your host, Tom Chamberlain, and I really want to thank Mike Hagan for coming out tonight and talking to us about turkey hunting and what to do in certain situations. And really, hopefully, it helped a lot of people out there that was watching. Now we got a special guest. She's been through a little bit of everything.
I have.
Her name's Sandra Haworth. Sandra, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I've talked on the show many times about tree stand safety, harness safety, and people hear it and it goes in one ear and out the other. So I really wanted to get you on when I learned about your story, because it's a very unique story. It's a very sad but with a happy ending story.
Yes.
You fell out of a tree stand.
I did.
Now, how long ago was that?
That was in October of 2008.
Okay. Now, how high were you when you fell out?
Well, it was a total of 25 foot because I was facing an embankment down at Taylorsville Lake. So it was a pretty good fall.
Now, can you? I'm sure it's still, in your mind, it's still fresh because, you went through this traumatic ordeal, but you were not wearing a safety harness.
I was not.
No safety line going up, no harness when you're strapped in. You had a hang-on stand.
It was a little lock on.
A little lock on, and did you doze off? What happened?
I did. I actually fell asleep. The temperature was perfect. The sun was starting to go in, and there I was. Next thing I know, I'm on the ground.
Now, did you lose consciousness when you hit the ground? Did you realize you hit the ground?
No. I woke up facing the ground.
Okay.
I was on my belly. I had obviously bounced. I landed on my back and bounced onto the front. So when I woke up, I was looking at the leaves.
Now, at that point when you woke up, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
I'm going to die. I felt there was a warmth going over my whole body. I could feel the inside. I was just bleeding on the inside. I could feel everything. And I knew right then, I was like, this is the end.
And at that time, you had a young child.
I did. I had two young boys.
2 young boys.
2 young boys.
So I'm sure your thoughts the whole time were, with your young boys.
That's what was going through my head.
So that probably in turn helped you fight a little harder because, they need mom.
Oh, yeah.
Mom needs to be there for them, so I've got to fight. Now, in 2008, you probably didn't have your phone with you, that type of thing. Was you hunting by yourself?
We were actually at we were kind of doing like a deer camp down at Taylorsville Lake. There was probably about four other guys, and they actually helped save my life.
Now, how did they know? Did you just not come back to deer camp and they thought something was wrong, or?
When I woke up and after I felt the warmth, I was able to yell out one time, and his name was Derek Holt. He ended up hearing me, and he came over there, luckily. Thank goodness he was probably about 100, 150 yards out.
Right.
He actually seen it out of the corner of his eye.
Okay.
He thought it was a deer, but it was actually me falling. And then he heard
the yell.
He heard the yell. I had already dropped my walkie-talkie earlier, and he came over there, and of course he was like, "Don't move, what happened?" I couldn't really talk, and I felt everything going numb. I couldn't feel anything.
And at that time,
And I told him, I said,
paralyzed.
I said, "I'm not going to make it. This is it." And I was like, "I have 2 young boys. This can't be it. This cannot be the end."
Right.
And he made some phone calls, and there was 3 other guys who I'd like to thank: Chris Huffman, Terry Price, and Dwayne Thomas. And they all came over there, called staff flight, called the emergency crew.
Now, at that point, y'all were pretty far back in Taylorsville, WMA.
Oh yeah, we were about 2 miles from the lake and 8 miles down the lake from where the staff flight was.
Now, so they called a helicopter in. So when he made that initial call, how did they get you from? Did the emergency crews come to the woods to you?
They were not able to get there. It was getting dark. It was already starting to get dark, and they knew they had to rush me out of the woods to get there to be able to find where we were.
Right.
So, unfortunately, they had a deer cart.
Because no ATVs or nothing like that allowed on WMAs.
Correct, right. So they loaded me up on the deer cart and transported me out from that way.
Okay, so once they put you on a deer cart, they had to row you back 2 miles? Now, at that time, was you in and out of consciousness? Did you realize what was going on?
I did. I ended up going into shock. I had an outer body experience. So I was basically above my body. I could see myself, I could see them, I could hear everything, but everything was kind of like awe. It's really hard to explain, but it happened yesterday.
Right. So everything at that point was really peaceful?
Very peaceful. Like I said, I could see myself, see them. They were all rushing to get me out of there. When I came back to, there was an emergency crew that was waiting at the lake, and they ended up putting me on a backboard. So they transported me from the deer cart to the backboard, and that's when I came back to.
And I guess, that was the only really means of transportation of getting you out the fastest. It probably wasn't the safest because if you had any spinal injuries, you're in that deer cart, you're bumping around.
Correct. That's what ended up me going into shock.
Was that? Was there a lot of pain associated with this, or?
This was the most excruciating pain I've ever felt in my life. They say the pelvis bone, which I had shattered, is the worst bone to break in your body, the most painfulest.
So when you get, staff flight shows up to the lake, they get you on a helicopter, and they send you to the University of Louisville downtown, Trauma Center?
Yes.
So you get to the Trauma Center, which is the best around. You were in very good hands, I'm sure, with that Trauma Center down at U of L. You get there, and I'm assuming, did they go right into surgery? They stabilize you? What happens at that point?
They were trying to get x-rays. The helicopter flight crew was there, the emergency crew was there. I just remember seeing them in the hallway.
Right.
And the whole time I was too worried about them cutting my clothes off about that time. So they eventually got x-rays, they got me contained, they put me into, the trauma center over there. They weren't able to do surgery for a good week and a half due to the injuries. They were trying to let the swelling go down and everything, so.
Now, once doctors assessed you, what did they feel like was your prognosis? Did they, well, first of all, what was all broke? Because a 25-foot fall, and you land and you bounce and you're on rough terrain, there's going to be traumatic, not just internal bleeding, but other bones were broken.
So basically, I shattered my pelvis. I had a internal bleeding. There was nothing external. Shattered my pelvis, my lower right superior ramus, my tailbone, shattered my tailbone, a femur. So basically, I was a puzzle to put back together.
So from your waist down, you were basically just crushed.
It was a 1/4 of a millimeter away from being paralyzed from my spinal cord.
No spinal injuries? That is a blessing in itself, because you hear people all the time talk, you hear people that fell out of stand that actually died from their injuries.
It's the number one.
Right. So you've got to make sure people, I tell you this 100 times on this show, always wear a safety harness, always strap in, strap your kids in, don't get off the ground unless you have a harness. If you forget it at home, hunt the ground. This is a living proof of why we do that. And this is why I stress so much that you've got to be strapped in, because you have a happy ending.
Very happy ending.
Many people don't have this happy ending.
They said I was very fortunate and very lucky.
Now, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the rehab you had to go through and things that were required of you to get back to where you are now. So, folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey folks, welcome back to Wild Kentuckiana Live. I'm your host, Tom Chamberlain, and we have Sandra Haworth with us tonight. And just to do a little recap, we're talking about tree stand safety, and like I said before we went to break, we always talk about how important it is to do it, but this is living proof that you have to do it. She made a dramatic mistake by not strapping in, falling asleep, falling 25 feet to the ground, and had to be put on a deer cart, pulled out 2 miles on Terrissville's WMA and staff flight to U of L. Sounds like just a tremendous ordeal you had to go through. 2 young sons at home, single mother, so your main concern was, at that time, was making sure my boys were okay, making sure they're taken care of. Luckily, you have 2 great parents that, I know you said your dad didn't miss a day at the hospital.
He did not. He was there every single day. He didn't want to leave.
Right.
I had to kick him out.
Yeah.
He still wouldn't leave.
And that's a father's instinct, because I would do the same thing for my kids. If my daughter or my son was in that situation, I wouldn't want to leave their side either, because you're very thankful that they're still even with you. And at that point, you definitely don't want to take a chance of losing them, so you're always going to be there.
No.
So you crushed everything from your waist down, basically.
Pretty much.
What was the prognosis? Did they say you were going to walk? Did they say you'd have a limp? Did they say anything?
Well, at the beginning, they were not sure exactly what was going to happen. They thought I was not going to be able to walk again. Finally, after a couple surgeries, they did tell me I would never be able to walk right, have kids. There was a lot of stipulations. And
you can live with those stipulations because you're alive.
Right.
It's none of it is great news, but it's all better than the prognosis it could have been. And you just learn to live with that. Now, so how long did you actually spend in the hospital?
It was a good month in the hospital, and probably about a month in rehab, which it should have been a lot longer. I'm very hard-headed and stubborn, which is probably why I'm still here today.
Right.
Thank goodness. But so it was a good month. About a week before I could do, like I was telling you earlier, about a week and a half before surgery, before I could have surgery.
So you were in the hospital basically for a week and a half before any surgeries were done, waiting for swelling to go down?
Yes.
Or
and for the doctor to figure out how they were going to put me back together.
So I'm sure he consulted several doctors on this whole thing, because it was a lot of stuff going on. When you get that many broken bones and so close to your spinal cord and internal organs. Now, did they have a problem stopping the internal bleeding? Did they get that taken care of right away?
Well, no, it took a little bit, but they eventually did get it to stop. I had to have several blood transplants, unfortunately.
Right.
But that saved my life.
Yeah, that's why it's important to give blood.
Yes,
and we have a blood
very
bank.
important, very important. That's a deed I need to make.
With your story, you would make a very good advocate for tree stand safety. Because, people, they just forget, there's been times where I forgot my strap to the tree. And I can't say that I didn't climb up anyway, because I did. Now, going forward, I'm going to think twice about that. I'm not going to do that.
I really hope so.
Because, you know, what you went through, I would never want to put my family through. And, you know, so I'm sure now at this point when you go to hunt, you always are safety.
Oh, that's the number one thing. The number one thing.
How long was you in a wheelchair total?
I couldn't walk for about a year.
A solid year?
A solid year.
And did it take help from your family to, to do everything?
The family, they helped so much. My children, they helped me out so much, let alone did they do wheelies in my wheelchair.
Well, how old were your kids at this time?
They were probably around 4 or 5.
Okay, so they were pretty young.
They were young. They were pretty young.
Do they remember it or talk about it?
They do remember it. After I start talking about it, they're like, oh, I remember that, Mom. You know? And when I show them a little bit of pictures and stuff, they're like, I remember that, so.
Well, you know, like I said, you know, you really came out with a happy ending on a horrible story. Mm-hmm. Now, you were telling me that you had a run of bad luck because you met the same
emergency crew.
Same emergency crew for a different situation.
It was actually 3 weeks to the exact date. I was actually coming back from Chaplin, coming back from a dove hunt with one of my cousins and one of his friends. And I just remember something told me to put on, it was 3 minutes before. I was going down Bloomfield Road, actually. And something came over me. I didn't wear my safety belt, which that's why I feel like I'm still here. I have a purpose. Right. And I feel like this is my purpose, is to teach safety.
Right.
So I was coming down Bloomfield Road, and something told me to put my seatbelt on. Literally, I put my seatbelt on. Literally 3 minutes later, I flipped my truck 3 times. Dove heads, dove feathers everywhere. I mean, it was a mess. So the emergency crew, when they got there, I climbed, you know, luckily there was a person who's seen it and come running over there and was able to get me out of the truck. So I stood in the middle of the road, and I'm like, everything's okay. You know, nothing's broke.
What about your other 2 passengers? Oh, okay.
It was just me.
Oh, it was just you. Okay.
They were still up at the little field that they were at.
And what caused you to flip? Did you?
You know, it hadn't rained in a very long time. It was just barely sprinkling, and I guess
enough of the road was wet to lose traction. So you ended up flipping your vehicle 3 times. So did you go to the hospital?
I did.
Everything was okay? You were good to go?
They told me an angel carried me.
Okay, so 3 weeks to the day, you fell out of your tree stand.
I fell out of a tree stand.
So you've had 2 pretty traumatic instances, and both of them result in not being safe.
Exactly.
So for the people that out there that are watching this, what is your message to them?
Wear your safety harness. That's the number one thing. I feel like that's why I'm here today, is to preach that.
And it's amazing that you have survived both of these instances. If I was you, you're like a cat.
That's exactly what the emergency crew told me. There is the Taylorsville emergency crew in the fire department, which I want to thank also.
Oh, absolutely.
Very much want to thank. They saved my life. And they did. They told me I was a cat and I only had like 3 lives left.
You would, if I was you, I would really slow down what I'm doing just to make sure.
Well, I've been told to quit hunting. I've been told, are you going to get back in a tree? And of course, yes, I will always get back in a tree. I will always wear my harness when I'm back in the tree.
It's not the tree's fault, not the stand's fault.
It is not.
It was your fault for not wearing the harness.
You know, before I fell, I actually said this remark because I was getting made fun of being a girl hunting out of a tree. And I was like, you know, I could jump from this tree. I've been doing this since I was a baby. I've been climbing trees since I was a baby. And sure enough, karma will get you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you've recovered 100%. Everything's back to normal. You're good to go.
100%. I don't have a limp.
That's
I'll
great.
Walk right, yeah.
And no ill pain from your accident, nothing like that?
You know, I could be a weatherman.
Yeah.
I can tell you when it's going to rain or snow.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I mean, I've been very fortunate and very lucky.
We're going to, in just a few minutes, we're going to take a break here, but when we come back, we're going to talk about, you're an avid deer hunter, love to fish.
Love fishing, love hunting.
So you're getting your kids involved.
Oh yeah, they love it.
And you and your kids are not any strangers to fishing tournaments. So when we come back from break, we're going to talk a little bit about her current hobbies and what she likes to do, hunting and fishing. So folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Make sure to wear your safety harness. Hey folks, welcome back to Wild Kentuckiana Live. I'm your host, Tom Chamberlain, and I have Sandra Haworth with me tonight, and we're talking about tree stand safety. She's been through 2 traumatic episodes, and she's walked away from both of them, literally. So that's a blessing right there. You have 2 young sons.
I do, Jordan and Dylan.
Now, how old is Jordan and Dylan now?
Jordan is 12, Dylan is 11.
Okay. Now, what are their passions?
Fishing and hunting.
Okay.
And, of course, video games, but
Right, that's all kids at that age. You know, my son's the same way.
they love the outdoors.
Now, you here's a great collage here of your sons. I mean, and they're holding some dandy smallmouth and largemouth
that's
bass.
Dylan. He's more the fisherman. He's actually won a tournament.
He's more like an
Yeah,
adult tournament
he
or
won
a
a tournament at
kid
Taylorsville.
tournament?
It was he was fishing with his grandpa.
Okay.
And he actually won a tournament. He won $400.
Nice. And
Very
he's,
proud.
Is he the youngest?
He is the youngest.
Okay.
He's more of the fisherman. The oldest is more of a hunter.
Now,
Well,
did you
and a
grow
fisherman.
up, your dad assumed
Oh,
hunted
yeah.
and fished, so that's how you got involved with it. And does your dad do a lot of tournament fishing?
No.
Just loves to bass fish?
He just fished. Yeah, he just did a lot of bluegill and crappie, actually.
Okay.
So
Lot of
I grew up
panfish.
doing that on my Snoopy Poe.
Right,
It was great.
absolutely. So how did you get into the tournament atmosphere and catching the large and smallmouth?
It was actually an ex. It was actually Dylan's father.
Okay.
And we fished all kinds of tournaments, won quite a few, lost many.
Right.
It's a very expensive habit.
Oh, it is.
Very
Anything
expensive.
outdoors is an expensive habit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a dandy of a
that
bass
was a
there.
good
Now,
one
where
right
was
there.
that caught at?
That was at Barron.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you all do like a little FLW circuit, or did y'all do?
You know, we did the classics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever fish the Tuesday night TNT at Bardstown? Or at Taylorsville?
Taylorsville Lake, yeah. We
And then
fished
the
plenty
Friday
of
night,
those.
the Friday night lake.
Yeah, plenty of those.
Now, what do you prefer? Do you prefer bass fishing or hunting?
You know, I love them both.
Do you? Mm-hmm. Now,
You know, bass fishing is a little bit more expensive.
right. Well, I don't know. Deer
Well,
hunting
yeah,
can be
you're
very
right.
expensive too. Especially if you don't have a piece of property and you're leasing property, you know,
That is
that
true.
can
That
get into a big expense
Tends
there.
to be the problem these days.
Absolutely.
Unless you're going to lease and
Now, when you were 15 or 16 years old, you killed a dandy.
I did kill
Now,
a
back
dandy.
then, we didn't have all of our camera phones and all that,
That
good
was-
stuff.
That's something I regret.
Now, tell us a little bit about that. Now, first of all, before we go to that story, this is your son. Here's your older son.
Yeah, that's Jordan.
And-
That's his second doe he shot. But that
Now,
was
what kind of
last
rifle
year.
is he using?
I think
243?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was actually with his dad on that one too.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great to see, you know, like my son,
He was
loves
so proud.
loves to hunt. My daughter could care less about it, and that's okay, but my son is tore up with it. And I love to see kids out there that are actually enjoying the outdoors, enjoying the woods, enjoying what God's created for us.
That's exactly what kids should be doing these days.
Right. Keeps them out of trouble.
Exactly.
The old saying goes, if you teach them to hunt and fish, they'll never have money for drugs.
I agree.
Because they'll use it all on that.
I agree.
Now, when you were still in high school, I'm assuming 15 or 16.
Could have been even a little bit younger.
Okay. You killed a really, really good deer. Tell us about that.
I did. I call it. It was about it was a 10-inch spread or a 10-pointer, and he had a 22-inch spread.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 176 class. He was a monster.
Now, is that your first buck? Mm-hmm. How do you ever top that being your first buck? Has it made you more picky?
That's the issue I've come to.
Okay.
I've passed up so many deer, looking for a trophy buck, looking for something bigger than
Right.
that.
And you know, you got to remember the trophy's in the eyes of the beholder.
You're exactly right.
And a 176-inch deer is a quality, probably 4.5, maybe even 5.5-year-old animal. Those aren't just running around rampant throughout. There's many of them out there.
I realize that.
You know, so sometimes if you take that first animal that's just a huge animal, you're spoiled. So you know, at that point, what do? How many deer do you think you passed up because of that first deer you killed?
Oh, I can't even count.
Really?
And then finally, the first time I decided to go after one, I had a little incident.
That's when you
and
had
that
your
was,
fall.
That was actually no, I didn't see one then.
Okay.
This was actually last year.
Okay.
It was gun season last year.
What happened during gun season last year?
Well, I was actually hunting in the blind out in Springfield, and I was actually about to leave. I was about to leave the area, getting up, about to pack everything up, making a lot of noise, and all of a sudden I just look out the deer blind, and here comes this I'm talking nice buck.
Now, you hunting private land or public land?
That was a private land.
Okay.
That was private land. He come running out chasing a doe, and so I'm getting ready, you know, nerves a little bit. And here I am, I'm ready to do the thing, and nothing. Safety's off, nothing.
Now, you hunting a rifle or shotgun? Okay, rifle?
And the boat, after everything was said and done, after it ran off, checked the gun and everything, and the boat is halfway up.
Didn't slide the receiver all the way in.
Big mistake.
Yeah, it happens.
Big mistake. It made me sick.
Well, I tell you what, I have a similar story. We was in Texas a few months back, and we were taking some friends of ours down there, and we was hunting, him and a buddy of mine was hunting a big blind, and he had a great big 8 walk out, and they're in an elevated blind, and he pulls the trigger, it goes click. You don't know what's going on, click. We didn't take our rifles down there. They supplied them when we got down there. Come to find out, he couldn't shoot this deer, and he was sick about it. And got back to the lodge, and he was telling the ranch owner what was going on, and he was like, look, I had a monster deer. I pulled the trigger twice. It just clicked on me. Well, come to find out, same problem. His receiver didn't go all the way up. It was an semi-automatic. It can be, yes. So his safety safety was on, but his receiver didn't go all the way up. So the firing pin was not making contact with the cartridge. So he missed a dandy of a buck, just like you did, because of that. So the next night he went out, and he tried to slide his receiver real quiet so he wouldn't make a lot of noise when he got into her. Well, I was hunting a pretty good piece of weight. I could hear him pull it back and let it go, and just pow, it jams up in there. So he knew the receiver was going good that time. It wasn't going to happen again, but of course he didn't see that deer no more, and that's the way it goes. But now, are you currently still fishing? Do you still do it?
I do fish and hunt still, not as much as I would like to.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely want to get back into it a lot more than what I have been.
It seems like
Life
that you're.
gets in the way a little bit.
Yeah, it does. I mean, when we have kids and we have jobs, it slows us down a little bit. It's not as free as we were when we were 19, 20, and all that. So, it's definitely, but you make room for it. And that you're getting your kids out is a great thing. You're teaching your kids a great sport and how to survive on their own and how to fend for themselves and able to, they field dress their own deer and.
He actually does it he did it with his dad.
So dad still helps him to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Until they're old enough and responsible enough to handle that knife, they can definitely cut themselves for what it is. So you definitely got to be careful. That's good that they're learning how to do that though, because
they did skin their first squirrel.
How'd
I made
that
them
go
do
for
that. That went not so good.
Yeah, was a lot chopped up on it.
Well, actually, you know what? They did really good for their first time. I will admit, they did pretty good.
Now, do you field dress your own deer?
Yes.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and I guess you're baiting your own hook.
Well, they try to get me on the. You gotta eat the heart.
Oh no.
I don't know if I can say that.
Folks, we're gonna get out of here. We'll see you next week. Wild Kentuckiana Live.
Thank you.